path. We attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay, let's do the 4 immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen damje dewatang dewe jutang den pa jutik Dungal tang, dungal chichu tang tra wajutik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang minral rajutik, nearing chak tang ni tang tra we, tang jo mimpala ni pa jutik. Okay, everybody. Shane, Kathy, I know that it's really hard for all of you overseas because the clocks have gone back. So it's really a very early time. So I really understand that it's really difficult for all of you when it's very early. But anyway, try and switch on your cameras if you can so that at least I can see you. Because we're going to do transcending body, speech, and mind with the meditation practices, but we're going on to Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche's beautiful Tibetan, the whole story of the Tibetan yogas of body, speech, and mind. And I was going to speed through it because the girls overseas asked me to please make it part 4 so it goes with the other ones, but I don't want to speed through it because I think there's really such a lot in these profound teachings that Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche taught on the Tibetan yogas of body, speech, and mind. And there's so much to learn. If you missed the previous parts, then go back and listen. And I started last week with a little bit of Tenzin Wangyal, and then all of you liked it a lot. It was inspiring, insightful teaching. So we're going to go back to it in full tonight. And I want to start off with a little story. Now, for some reason, this story touched a core in my heart. It's not the first time I've read this story, but it's really, really a most beautiful, beautiful story because when you think of people at their death, you think of people having a bit of a panic or just meditating or anything. But this story I'd heard from a lot of the lamas, and I think it really says everything about a pure body. So this is what he writes. A few days before his death, one of my childhood teachers, Jen Singtrug, could be found working away at a sewing machine in the monastery. I remember watching him from the next room, the beautiful afternoon light streaming in on his frail form through the window as he was singing the songs he loved and stitching together the banners that were to be burnt with his body when he was cremated. So he was singing, the light was going, I could actually picture this so beautifully. He was stitching the banners that had to go with his body when he was going to die any moment. Jen Singtrum could be said to personify the subtlest form of body known as the eternal body. All of you are going to get the eternal body, okay? Imagine that, like Jen Singtrum, you can experience a continual sense of youthful playfulness and innocence with no interference from your physical body, even when it goes through aging, pain, sickness, or the dying process. This sense of eternal youth is related to one's essence and is a kind of a body, an entity that supports your sense of who you are, the experience of your being. And he says, throughout life, one's physical body is subject to constant change, yet one's essence never changes. This is what's meant by eternal body. In the highest sense, the body is pure like the Dharmakaya, like pure emptiness or pure space. And according to the Dzogchen teachings, We all have a connection to that essence through our bodies. Now, I read that story many years ago, and I just could imagine somebody who's about to die sewing their banners on a machine, singing about everything when he's almost dead. I mean, wouldn't you like to be doing that? Because I absolutely would. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I think that it actually changes everything. And Tenzin Wangyal says, the stillness of the body, the silence of speech, and the spacious awareness of mind are the true three doors to enlightenment, which is really important. The stillness of body, the silence of speech, and the spacious and awareness of mind are the three doors. And he says the body can be seen as far more than its image in the mirror or the fullness you feel after you've had a good meal. The body can be seen as both a reflection and the source of your entire range of experience, including your spiritual realization. Now, what is so interesting is no matter what you've been through, addiction, abuse, rape, the horrors of, say, like these hostages or people, who've been captured and wounded in armies. So no matter what your body has been through, like I've had lots of people over the years in counseling who've been through terrible abuse or terrible rapes or terrible incest or terrible things. And what is so interesting is that people really feel that can never be healed. They actually have a certain feeling about their body. My body is dirty. My body is unclean. My body is not what it should be. They have that attitude. And he is saying, no matter what you've been through, even an addict who nearly comes to death and then revives, you can give birth to a new mind and with it, a new sense of body. Now, I find that very interesting because I think that so many times I have people who've gone through the most terrible thing. If you think of those people, for instance, in the Holocaust, who went through really the most terrible, terrible things. I mean, they really, how do you recover? How do you recover after you've really, really, really been through horror of horrors and abuse to your body and torture and all kinds of things? Well, the only way you can recover is when you get to the view of your mind where you know that this is a temporary, transient, impermanent body. And that if you change the mind, we'll talk about the speech later, but if you change the mind, then automatically the body feels different. So instead of walking around with feeling I've got an impure body, people are looking at me and a disdain for it, you actually have a completely different view. And I think that in the preface, Tenzin says, through study combined with practice, you can gain direct experience of the truth in the simplest of places within your own body, speech, and mind. That's the simplest. You can gain direct experience of the truth by looking at those three. Now, last time I was talking a little bit, I was giving you, I won't go into it again, but I'll just give you the essence of it. I was talking about his dedication poem that he did, where he said, all pure virtue is done through the three doors. He dedicated to the welfare of all sentient beings in the three realms, having purified all afflictions and obscurations of the three poisons, may we swiftly achieve the complete Buddhahood of the three bodies. Now, the three. I spoke about last time. I'm not going to go too much in them, but I'll just mention them. The three doors are your body, speech, and mind. And your body, speech, and mind are the entrances and the exits. So if you're not fully aware of your ordinary body, speech, and mind, then you cannot enter into the eternal body and into what I'm going to explain to you, the higher state of the three doors, because you're so attached to those ordinary body, speech, and mind. So you can't go beyond it. So the ordinary body, speech, and mind is the entrance as well as the exit to be able to get something more eternal. The three realms are the realms we live in. They're called the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realms. Those are the three realms of samsara where we live. And those are very important to actually be aware of where we live. We live in the desire realm, most of us, okay? Then the three poisons are the basis of all your negative emotions: delusion, passion, aggression. Delusion is also ignorance. Passion is also desire and craving, etc. And aggression, I don't have to explain. And the three bodies are the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. So when he gives that poem in the beginning, he's giving all of those things. How we can be, what are the three doors, what are the three poisons, what are the three realms we live in, and what are the final three bodies that we want to attain, which is really important. And he calls the ordinary body, speech, and mind the conceptual dash karmic dash emotional pain, body, speech, and mind. The conceptual, we'll talk about it in a moment, karmic, emotional, pain, body, speech, and mind. In short, he calls them the pain body, the pain speech, and the pain mind. And these belong to the limit of our little self. When we believe in our little self, when I believe that Melanie is the extent of who I am, then I'm really in the pain body, pain speech, and pain mind. You could be in one and not in the other. So those are very, very important to understand, okay? They belong to the limit of a little self that unfortunately we identify with that little self, not with our true nature. But as I said last time, when we know how to work skillfully with them, they become the three doors to enlightenment, the tools, a constant opportunity to reflect and connect with the joyful, formless truth that is our authentic nature. He says, the physical, that's the body, the energetic, that's the speech, and the mental realms of our experience are always with us. They're part of us. They're who we are. They're within us. They are who we are. And we can enter into the eternal Vajra body, the ceaseless speech, and the undiluted mind through them. But we have to become aware of what he calls the little self and the big self. Now, it's quite funny because I've never really heard of that. I've heard of the little self, but I've never really heard the big self being discussed, except by Jung. Jung used to call your higher self, the self with a big capital letter. And it's interesting, he uses that. But he says that the little self, which is we identify, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that. We identify with that little self. And who are we? Are we trapped in that? Are we really trapped in that? With me coming into this new house, going to Dubai for a week, which is an experience. I told you all yesterday, like you can't have an experience like that because it's like a real samsaric, but very pristine experience of samsara. And then coming back to a new house, and then just everything changing. My son, the last one that's here, is immigrating, so he's moved in. And I'm just looking at all of this. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, everything is temporary. And no matter what you're doing, it's all temporary, it's all transient, it's all impermanent. And soon You step through the gates of death, and then you can't even see people who are living in other countries. You actually are giving up that identity. You actually are going into your eternal self. So why not try and cultivate that huge self while we're in a body, while we're now? Why not keep on seeing the truth that everything's impermanent, everything's intangible, everything is not dualistic, it's just a reflection of your mind. And then we are preparing ourselves. And I want you to debate with me your ideas about it. I don't just want to give a lecture, because I really think, who are we? And who are we not? Who we are not is what we identify with, our roles. So who are we? When we go beyond this mistaken view, then we discover who we really are. And who are we as we really are? We are emptiness. We are awareness, its nature. And we are unlimited energy. But we're always tired. We're always looking at our body and thinking, I'm so tired. We aren't. Emptiness. We look in the mirror and we go, I'm so fat. I'm so ugly. I'm getting so old. Look at my wrinkles. Look how I look. We always preoccupied with that. And when we come through the portal of death, everything, but everything, your family, your children, your everything is left behind. Now ponder that, because we cultivate it, we have to, that's our responsibility. But once we leave, it's gone. And so for me, coming back from this really weird, amazing experience of samsara and coming back to a new house and then trying to get used to all the things that are completely different for me, it just makes me realize nobody belongs to me. Nothing is tangible. Nothing is anything. And he says, before understanding this true nature, we need to be fully aware of our smaller sense, which is our habit and our conditioning. We may even be a positive person with a positive sense of identity, or we may see ourselves as terrible. But he asks the question, when I speak, am I the words that I'm saying, or am I the one speaking? Or are they one? Who am I? Am I the words I'm telling you, or am I Melanie speaking to you? Or is it all one? When I'm sick, then am I the body that is sick? Am I this shriveled up little body? Or am I the person who's sick? Or are both the same? Ponder these questions. Most of the time, our view causes us terrible pain. And he says, we feel the pain of needing and desiring what we don't have. Now think about that. That we spend half our lives saying, this is what I want. This is my goal. This is my aspiration. Why can't I look like her? Why can't I have his brains? Why can't I have his insight? We spend half our lives like that. We have the pain of the fear of needing and desiring what we don't have. He says, and then we have the pain or fear of losing what we have. Don't take my water. This is my water, okay? I'm not giving it to you, because what happens when I'm thirsty and there's a water shortage in Johannesburg? You can't have it. We fear losing what we have. We also fear being separated from our loved ones. Now, I was thinking, my son is immigrating. This one is immigrating to Brussels. So it's a different place completely. And we all over the world. And I'm thinking, when will I next see you? I mean, will I be well enough to travel all these years? Or are you going your way and you going your way? I was with children in Dubai, little ones that you get so close to, and then they're gone. They're gone. And when will I see them again? And when you start pondering that, he says, the pain of being separated from our loved ones, we spend half the time doing that. And the fourth one, he says, the pain of encountering people we don't like. Now, there are lots of people, she's laughing, Kerry. There are lots of people we don't like. The pain of encountering people we don't like. Who are the people we don't like? The people we don't like are the people that mirror to us our projections onto them. So every person we don't like is something we've got or we've got the opposite of. They're just a mirror for us. And so we're continually in pain. That's why he calls it a pain body, a pain mind, a pain speech. Okay. And I want to read you this story. I love this story. I got this story many years ago, but I think it's really very interesting in the light of what we're talking about. There were once two men, both seriously ill, in the same small room of a great hospital. Quite a small room, it had one window looking out on the world. One of the men, as part of his treatment, was allowed to sit up in bed for an hour in the afternoon, something to do with draining the fluid from his lungs, and his bed was next to the window. But the other man had to spend all his time flat on his back. Every afternoon, when the man next to the window was propped up for his hour, he would pass the time by describing what he could see outside the window. The window apparently overlooked a park where there was a lake. There were ducks and swans in the lake, and children came to throw bread and sail model boats. Young lovers walked hand in hand beneath the trees, and there were flowers and stretches of grass, games of softball, and at the back, behind the fringe of trees, was a fine view of the city skyline. The man on his back would listen to the other man describing all of this, enjoying every minute. He heard how a child nearly fell into the lake and how beautiful the girls were in their summer dresses. His friend's descriptions eventually made him feel he could almost see what was happening outside. Then one fine afternoon, this terrible thought came to his mind called the pain mind, okay? He thought, why should the man next to the window have all the pleasure of seeing what was going on? Why shouldn't I get the chance? He felt ashamed, but the more he tried not to think of it, the worse he wanted a change. He'd do anything. And one night, as he stared at the ceiling, the other man suddenly woke up, coughing and choking, his hands groping for the button that would bring the nurse running. But the man watched without moving, even when the sound of breathing stopped. In the morning, the nurse found the other man dead and quietly took his body away. As soon as it seemed decent, the man asked if he could be switched to the bed next to the window. So they moved him, tucked him in, and made him quite comfortable. The minute they left, he propped himself up on one elbow, painfully and laboriously, and looked out of the window. It faced a blank wall. Okay, so think about that story. It faced a blank wall. Now think about in our lives with pain, body, speech, and mind, how we do that all the time. In our minds, in our energy, in our speech. Remember, speech is not only what you're saying, it's what's going on inside you all the time. Remember that speech is that energy, and it's telling you things all the time. And how many times do we start pondering about really we want this and we don't want this, and how we envy people and how we're jealous of people and how we feel about this and how we feel about that. And all of it's actually garbage, you know. How do we change? How do we change all of this? This is what this whole Tibetan yogas of body, speech, and mind is really about. Because the main causes of our pain and suffering are, number one, the conceptual mind. What does the conceptual mind mean? It means always analyzing, deciding, labeling, judging, working out, planning, plotting. That is called your conceptual mind. I mean, James Lowe gives a very interesting thing on concept, because he says, we're sitting in a room, or I'm sitting in a room, okay? But these two dogs of mine do not have a concept of a room. They have some inner feeling that they just want to be around me when I'm teaching. But they don't have a concept of a room. Are they worse off than me? I'm not sure. I'll leave that for you to decide, okay? But concepts, that's one of the causes of our pain and suffering, the conceptual mind. Number two, the karmic conditions. So the karmic conditions are our relative conditions that keep on going, that lots of time are tremendous suffering, and they just go on and on and on in our lives. And we believe them. And we believe we're being punished by them. And we don't believe we created them. We just think it's bad luck that I've got all these circumstances. Meanwhile, every single circumstance is a creation of your mind. So the three causes are the conceptual mind, the karmic condition, and three, the negative emotions. Negative emotions are our quick shot at everything. We're quick to anger, we're quick to get jealousy, we're quick to delude ourselves, we're quick to have pride. All those negative emotions, those three cause the pain and suffering: the conceptual mind, the karmic conditions, and the negative emotion. Now, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche calls the three, first of all, the conceptual, karmic, emotional, pain, body. That's the first one. Remember, I said the conceptual mind, the karmic conditions, and the negative emotion. So he calls the three the conceptual, karmic, emotional, pain, body, and the conceptual, karmic, emotional, pain, speech, and the conceptual, karmic, emotional, pain, mind. Those three. Now think about them. The mind is thinking about the concepts. The speech is always an energy, is about the concepts and the analysis and the everything that we're doing. And the body is reflecting that in all different ways. So they all are conceptual, karmic, emotional, pain, body, speech, and mind. Or he calls them the pain body, the pain speech, and the pain mind. Now, whether physically, that's the body, energetically, that's the speech, psychologically, which is the mind, we experience ourselves mainly through our pain. What do you think of that? We experience ourselves in all three mainly through our pain. What do you feel about that? I mean, aren't you sick of it? Aren't you sick of always experiencing yourself through your pain? Yeah. Okay, Fee, let's hear what you've got to say, because you're nodding your head.
Yes, I've come to experience that, particularly over the last couple of years, is you begin to realize, if you do start really, taking those moments of, trying to just be in the present, and you realize the extent to which you are constantly wanting this, wanting that, not getting this, not getting that. Instead of being exactly where you are, your mind is either going backwards or forwards. What I didn't get, what I want, what I did, there's all these reference points other than where you actually are and what you are. That's how, I've come to that sort of, like, I don't know. I hate to use the word realization, because I don't mean it in the Buddhist sense, but I've come to that realization that, it's amazed me how much of my life I've actually wasted with grasping and being worried about what people think, and worried where this is coming from and that's coming from, and what about this and what about that and what about the house over my head and all this sort of, all these things that, as you say, are fundamentally, when you really look at the nature of them, they are impermanent. That we've got this feeling that they are so very, very solid. And I'm like you, Mel, I've had enough because I keep doing that. And it's not what it should be. And you begin to realize that as you look at things more deeply, you really do begin to realize it.
Yeah, and he says that if we experience life through our pain, if we see the whole of life as pain, the small self, that's the identity, if you identify, I'm Melanie, or I'm Fiona, or I'm Denny, or I'm Jean, who's just come in, you must get the beginning part, Jean. The small self through which we experience the pain is more familiar to us. This is the part we use all the time, but it can be the part through which we discover Rigpa, our huge self. We experience ourselves like that, but we can use that experience to open up. I mean, if you think about when people go through loss, when they go through bereavement, when they go through losing a job, when they go through not having enough money, when they go through all these things, these could be a door for you to really experience something and not attach yourself to that which is exactly as it should be. We could discover Rigpa. Rigpa is that intrinsic awareness that can shine its light on anything in our lives if we look deeply enough. So let's look at these three. The pain body. When we look at the pain body, it's not only about the physical body, but the body is the foundation or ground of this small self, your identity. It's the foundation, like an identity, how we see ourselves, all our body language. Now, think about a person. A person walks into the room, okay? You start talking to them and they fold their arms like this. Now, when people fold their arms like that, I just go very gently, open your arms, please. They go, oh, but I'm comfortable like that. I say, but you're closing yourself off to me. Open up, open to me. Now, a lot of people are so uncomfortable in their bodies. They walk into a room and they shrink back. They don't want anybody really to notice or see them. Other people walk in a room and they exude light the minute they walk in. They're friendly, they're open, they're touchy. Do you know how many people I know that can't stand touch? They don't want you to touch them, even to touch them on the arm. Don't. And some people tell me, please don't touch me. And then I go, okay, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and change your view of touch, because you are living through the view that the person who touched you earliest in your life was a person who either didn't touch you or touched you very roughly, or whatever the case is. And you've got that karmic imprint. And what we're going to work on is how you change that, how you use that pain body to actually as the ground of the small self and the part that starts opening out. So you actually land up doing the opposite to what you usually do once you become aware that there is a much greater part of you that can be. And I'm sure, Kerry, when you work with children in the school, you see lots of children that shrink back, and he gives a lot of meditational exercises and things to help people to open up. And I think you could easily do that in a school, very easily. Okay, we'll come to that. Let's go to the pain speech now. Okay, remember the pain speech is conceptual, karmic, emotional pain speech. What is that? First of all, people who are using pain speech, they try and make a point and they go on and on and on, and everybody's bored with their points. I hope I don't do that too much, but they go on and on and on with their point, and they can't make the point. You know, sometimes you hear people saying to a person, your point being, okay, your point being, because they just go on and on and on. Sometimes when somebody's walked into my room, after about 5 minutes, I've already heard the whole story, but the whole story takes the whole session. Sometimes I have to say to people, okay, that's fine. I get a really good picture of you, but you have to be careful because some people need to go on and on and on telling you the story. But I just need to hear a little bit of the story. I'm putting a kind of a karmic picture into my mind. And, you know, and I don't need to know more. But if you were working with psychology on a lower level, then you need to know every single detail of the story. But we probably don't need every detail of the story. We need to see the process. Now, speech, some people have got an internal dialogue. This is the pain speech, an internal dialogue that goes on and on. And many times the internal dialogue is fruitless, not fruitful. It's going nowhere, but it goes on and on. I hate this and I hate this, and why can't I do this? And what's happening to me here? And where's this going? The internal dialogue, and why do I look like this? And why does nobody take note? On and on. If we connect with this, if we connect, okay, that the communication that we are saying is different to the internal dialogue, if we connect with this, we can find a wordless source, a peaceful place. How do you find a peaceful place of speech? There's no expectation that anyone must hear or respond as you want them to. Now, you know you've got to be a very big person not to expect everybody to hear what you want, because all day long you hear people saying, but you haven't heard me. But you're not getting what I'm saying. And they're frustrated and everything. Because why? Because we're having an internal dialogue of what we think the person is telling us. And we're having our own ideas and perceptions about what the person is telling us. And maybe we're not connecting. Now, real speech, which is called energy, which is called communication, is when you connect. Pain speech is a disconnection. You're not connecting with people. You are disconnected. What's going on inside is not what's going on outside. And everything you say, you need and want the other person to respond to you in a particular way. I like you ought to put your cameras on so I can see your faces. I know you're in the dark, Kathy, but it's nice to see your responses to this, and you can butt in anytime because it's really.
Mel, I want to add that my experience at the moment is that I'm finding that I feel like I'm on a different wavelength to some people, to people that are very argumentative.
Yeah.
And they are set on their way. They will not budge. And I'm on a very open-minded wavelength, and I feel that I'm listening and I'm aware and I'm sharing that, and I'm getting people that are like, no, they will not budge, and they're expecting me not to budge, and I'm just I'm like, I'm done. If you want to carry on with that low vibration, I feel quite impatient at the moment with people like that.
Now, you see, Kath, what you're bringing up is so important, because what's it all about? You know, when I was in Dubai now, it seemed to me that everybody had a different opinion to me, okay? Even when we
That's
went,
how I feel.
they all had a different opinion. And so many times I felt really okay just keeping quiet. I can't explain it to you. You know, sometimes I would just say one word or two words which expressed what I felt without a big debate and a big everything. I'm not going against what you say. But what is communication? And what is speech? And does it mean, I mean, how did the Buddha feel that he understood the whole world, both from a samsaric point of view and an incredibly high point of view? He understood the world like that, but nobody could understand what he was saying. But isn't the idea of that essential speech, which is associated with the Sambhogakaya, which we'll talk about later, but isn't that essential speech supposed to be that you can connect with people even if you don't agree with them? You don't have the need to convince them that what they're saying is garbage or rubbish. You're okay about it because you could see from their point of view, from their conceptual background, from their everything, that actually they're not going to change their mind. And aren't we supposed to be very patient and very connected and or are we supposed to change them? You know, you can only change people when they really want to change. But so many times people don't want to change. And I find myself going, okay, I get what you're saying. I have one person who is not sure, this person's not sure whether they want to come to me or they don't. Okay, so they hum and haw backwards and forwards. And it doesn't worry me in the least bit because I'm looking at them and I could see, you know what, you often feel quite uncomfortable in my company, not because I want to make you uncomfortable, but because you don't agree with what I'm saying. But I would rather make you feel comfortable either about staying or about leaving. I want you to know, I've said to this person, I want you to know that when you don't want to come anymore, it's really fine. And if you do want to come, it's even fine for me, but it's even better. But isn't it our role to find a way with true speech, with Sambhogakaya, which is the illusory wisdom body that we're going to talk about? Isn't it important to be able to get people where they are at? I'm just throwing this at you, Kathy. I'm not telling you to buy
Yes.
it.
No,
Is it
well, so Mel, I 100% agree with what you're saying, but I'm finding that people are just, it's easier for them to just call me weird or
no?
to tell me that I am doing too much, like at work, because I go over and above. That's who I am without being manipulated, So I put my views across, but I allow others to also have their views. But I'm finding a lot of people generally all over the place, very, very set on what they want, what they think is right. They don't like other people showing them up. They maybe feel that I show them up, and I'm
Maybe.
not, but I'm going to be who I am in society. I am a positive person, and I'm gonna keep bringing that forward because that's who I am.
Be cautious because the Buddha managed
Yes,
to make people feel comfortable, even though he
yes,
had a completely different view. That's what I'm trying to say.
yes.
Avril's
Yeah.
got his. What did you want to say, Avi?
So, Kathy, like, are you experiencing in a way that you've just been you and the views and the way that you see the world and the way you interact?
it just being that, it's other people find a struggle with that. So it's not like you're doing anything to them, but they're struggling with you. Am I understanding correctly in a way?
Yes, I think that's what it is. It's not everybody, but yeah, I'm just finding people are being very, very set and strict, and this is what they want
Rigid.
and this is what they're doing, and I'm very rigid, and I'm like, okay, and then I just kind of go quiet and rather just stay at home alone than have to deal with that, with people.
But isn't
So,
it?
so Mel,
Yes, tell me.
well, so you mentioned earlier when Kathy was first talking, you said that sometimes you just say a word, and that's, you get your point across, and then you don't have the need to say anything further. And so when you in a situation like that, I mean, can you give an example of what you mean? I'd just be curious, because I mean, as you know me, I talk the hind leg of a donkey, and I find myself often over explaining
When you
something.
find yourself over explaining, you know how that's described.
No.
You can't abide. As soon as you can't stay still and just allow, you have to get your point across because of the inadequacy of how people feel. But I'll give you an example of what happened in Dubai. We were having this discussion with my kids, son-in-law, daughter, all of them and everything. And he said something like, I'm not sure about this afterlife, Melanie. I'm telling you, I'm not sure about this afterlife. I don't know if when you die, you go into the ground, or there is something or there isn't something. I'm quite frankly not convinced there is. Now, I think he was throwing something at me to come out with a whole argument with him, which I didn't. And I said, we're all free to believe whatever we want. But all I said a little bit later was, but if you find you lost when you go into the bardos, then call me. And then he said, why? Have you ever had any experiences of people that caught you? I said, plenty. So I said, give me one. I started off to give him, I mean, I've had hundreds of experiences with people. I started off by giving him the example. I said, well, I was counseling this woman that lost her 2 children. And I said, okay, that was a good example. I said, the daughter who died came and gave me, some of you might remember the story, she came and gave me 2 yellow butterflies, and she told me, she gave them to me. The butterflies were on a stand, they weren't alive. And she gave them to me and said, tell my mother not to put these in the front lounge, but to put them in a storage cabinet or in the pantry. This was the message she gave me in the dream. So I took this and I thought, oh my God, what do I do? She's just lost her 2 children. What am I going to say? And I've got this dream. So what I did with her was I said, just tell me, do yellow butterflies mean anything to you? So she said, oh, yes. She said, after my daughter died and we sat the period of mourning and everything, then the rabbi came along and he said, right, now we're not mourning anymore. She said, this little yellow butterfly came and sat down on the couch right next to me. And when he said, we're going to go into the Sabbath now, the little yellow butterfly got up and flew out. So then I understood her message. So I told the mother that what she was actually saying was, don't make her whole life centered on these 2 butterflies that have flown away, but rather put them in her memory and enjoy the memory of everything. That was the message she was giving to me. So I told this in a very simple way, and there was just a silence at the table. Okay, nothing else. And then, and then he started to dig out experiences that he'd actually had, but I didn't tell him any conclusion. I just said, I've had lots of these experiences. And I said, and I've also met lots of incredible masters who know their previous lifetimes. That's it. So, sometimes you can say, but no convincing, no anything. When he just asked me, have you ever, I said, plenty of experiences, that's all, And then he needed to know, which if I tried to convince him, he wouldn't have needed that. So I think it's really important to be in tune with where people are. I think that's part of the pain speech and the pain mind, the third one. Tenzin Wangyal says, when the pain mind dominates, it means you have scattered thoughts, lots of scattered thoughts, too many emotions, too many mental images, or you're stuck on one mind thought like anger, grudges, depression. He says the solution is when we begin to train ourselves. So, for example, we're having this thought, I'm angry and I'm always angry at everything. And then we start training ourselves by saying, this is not me. So in other words, you're starting to say about all these pain thoughts that you've got, this is not me. And he says, as soon as you say that, awareness starts to release the pain and a freedom starts to enter. And we start to become aware of this whole part of us, our true nature. It's really, really interesting because when you look at people, we usually describe people how they are. This is a mingy person. This is a uptight person. This is an angry person. There's no such a thing. He says we have to say, this is not me. When people come to me and they say to me, I'm depressed, or they say to me, I suffer from depression, I say, you mean, I always go, you mean, to rephrase it, you mean you feel quite sore about a lot of things. Because if you're a depressed person and you suffer from depression because your mother did and your grandmother did and your great-grandmother did, it's really difficult to see yourself in any other way. But if you go, this is not me, I might have a feeling of being depressed, I might have a feeling of disappointment, but there's nothing tangible about it. It's not me. So he said, that's how you start to release the pain body. Those three, pain, speech, pain, mind, and pain body, and pain, mind. And he says, you can discover, no matter what happens, your physical world is actually complete. Your energy is strong and your mind is at peace. He said the peace and freedom is available if you find the doorway. That's so important because the doorway is when you suddenly realize that all of this is temporary, transient. It's not you. You see yourself, how your parents saw you, how you grew up, how your teachers saw you, how your friends saw you. If you were not a popular person, if you were a popular person, how you were. You see yourself like that. But that's not you. That's just a transient little identity, a little self that you are going through in your life. And it's certainly not the essence of who you are.
May I now ask something? I hear what you're saying, and you used the example of depression, but where does like serious mental illness fit into this? Because I think of someone that's, a psychotic or, has really sort of clinical depression, or, there's a number of different really serious mental illnesses. So how does that sort of
See,
that
for
in
me,
terms of a Buddhist perspective?
Well, for me, when you've got a serious mental illness, to me, if we're looking at it, we're not analyzing it psychologically or psychiatrically, we're analyzing it from a Buddhist, from a spiritual point of view. If you've got a real intense, now think about it. Let's say you are an obsessive compulsive person. And the doctor says, or you are a manic person, and then you're high and then you're low. You know, you suffer from that. When you look at those things, for me, those are just ongoing habits of that pain body, pain speech, pain mind that's gone on and on from lifetime to lifetime without any of the imprints being resolved. And eventually it becomes an identity. Now, I remember once seeing a story. I can't remember the person who it was. Some of you might remember. He was a schizophrenic guy who also had an amazing spiritual background. And he managed to control completely all his psychotic episodes through his mind, which was absolutely amazing, not through medication and not through anything, but by being able to actually say, this is not me, this is the way I am behaving because of all my conditioning, because of everything that I've done, okay? And because I'm behaving like this, it's a part that has split off and behaves in that particular way. And so often I look at people and I think to myself, you know, they're not really the people, the sick people that they define themselves as. And there definitely is a way, besides medication and being assessed and being labeled as this and that and the other, schizophrenic, obsessive, compulsive, whatever, manic, depressive, whatever you're doing. Those for me are the deep karmic habits that have actually happened. And now you come into an identity and you claim that identity. Because if you look at some of the psychotic episodes and you look at people, there is a split off from reality. But what I found so interesting, I was thinking about this one girl who would have these breakdowns periodically. Now, what was so fascinating is her mother asked me to phone her in the mental hospital. She was having this real psychotic outbreak. What I found so fascinating in our Zoom session was that she knew everything spiritually. I'd never heard her know any of those things, but she actually knew everything spiritually while she was in the hospital under medication, you know, going through this breakdown. Now, how do you explain that? Is it that maybe, I'm just putting a hypothesis out, is it that she's got all this spirituality in her, and you know, because of her circumstances, because of the kind of mother she's got, because of the kind of circumstances, she can't express it. So in order to express it, she's got to have this split off, this psychotic divorce from herself, and then she can see the light. Now, what I did with this particular person was, when she came out of the episode, I explained this to her. And I said, how about if spiritually you allow yourself your full expression and to understand yourself, and you do that all the time when you find yourself getting so irritated and frustrated and can't cope with your life in any way, which is when you're having the breakdown. Now, what if you bring that you know into that? Could it change? Well, it's interesting because she's never had another breakdown since that time. So maybe she is able to do that. And I saw this guy cure himself from a extremely disturbed state. So I know it can be done with your true nature. But let's not get too much off the point. I just want to give you this little story, and then I'll give you just a little more, and then we'll do a meditation. So there was this beautiful story of the businessman. Let me just read it from here. What happens was, it's the story of this very easygoing fellow relaxing in the desert who is approached by a successful businessman. The businessman asks him what he's up to, and the fellow responds, "I'm just relaxing and I'm enjoying." "You should find something to do," the businessman suggests. "I don't have anything to do. I don't have any job." He says, "Well, then you should try to find some work. Maybe I'll help you. You should learn some skills and get yourself a job. Then you'll learn more skills while on the job so you can find yourself a better job. Then someday, maybe you'll get a higher paid position like mine." "And what then?" the idle fellow asks. "Well, then you will have money, like as much as you want." He says, "And then what?" "Oh, well, then you could enjoy the good life." The fellow says, "But I'm already enjoying a good life. Why should I go through all that trouble to get where I already am?" Well, that's the story. In a way, this is what the Dzogchen teachings tell us. The perfected qualities are already here, even before we strive to connect with them. They are in the base, they are in the path, and they are in the result. And in the end, the high experiences of body, speech, and mind come without effort. So the doorway to happiness, contentment, clarity, and wisdom is always with us if we have the strong intention to enter it. Okay, we enter it with full awareness, which is called Rigpa, on, say, anger, no analysis, just full awareness. The judgment, we both the observer and the observed. When we don't judge, they both dissolve spontaneously into their clear, luminous nature. Because what is the anger? What is the pain? What is the depression? What are all these emotions? He says the pain body dissolves into stillness. That doesn't mean you never move. It just means you're aware and you're quiet. The pain speech dissolves into silence. Silence doesn't mean you never talk. It means that inner dialogue, that inner nagging, that inner analysis, and talking all the time stops. He says, and the pain mind dissolves into spaciousness of pure non-conceptual awareness. And he says we should observe if the problem is mostly physical or mostly energetic, which is your speech, or communication, or more your mind. But even if more focused on one, they're all connected. So we can then get to the goal of ultimate realization. He says, if just this last thing, and then we'll do them in detail next time. If we examine the three bodies that are with us, we can call them the conceptual karmic body. That's what we mostly use, and we'll discuss them. Or secondly, the illusory wisdom body, which is like the Sambhogakaya. It's an illusory body. It's the body we go to when we're dreaming. It's an illusory body. It keeps dissolving. It keeps opening up. It keeps clarity. It keeps luminosity. And the third one is called the changeless, precious body. So those are the three, the Nirmanakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Dharmakaya. We are trying to get those, and we'll discuss them in a lot more detail. Does anyone want to ask or say anything on what I've said? And let's do.
Melanie, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's pertinent. When you say like someone is the example emanation of Tara example, what does that actually means?
Such an interesting thing what you're asking, because you know what? If you were in a light body, okay, or a rainbow body, which is what you attain once you reach the heights of the body, speech, and mind, the Vajra body, speech, and mind. If you were in a rainbow body or a light body, you would not move. You would simply emanate, 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 emanate. And what does emanation mean? It means you don't get born, you don't die, you just emanate wherever you need. So by the power of your pure mind, you can just send whatever is needed, even if it's medicine, even if it's an emanation of Tara, even if it's when someone's an emanation of Tara, they're not an emanation of a person, of Tara, they're an emanation of what Tara represents, which is the eternal mother, who is speedy, who is perfected action, who is able to put it in many different ways for many different people. So what happens is a lot of these masters, they concentrate on a deity. When you concentrate on a deity, the idea is that eventually you become that deity. You're not becoming a physical deity, but you embody all the qualities of that deity, okay? And then you could say, he's an emanation of Tara, she's an emanation of Chenrezi, he's an emanation of Guru Rinpoche. It just means that from the mind, they can put themselves wherever they needed in whatever form they are needed in. That's what an emanation is. We are unfortunately beings who have to go through a body in a womb for 9 months, born through parents, go through all our psychological crap and everything else, and then eventually maybe come to the Buddhism, find a beautiful deity. I mean, if I could be anything, I would want to be white Tara. But earlier in my life, I wanted to be green Tara, okay? Because green Tara suited what I was much earlier in my life. But now I love white Tara, who sits in this beautiful, pure manner. And she's a wish-fulfilling wheel. And she just is there for whoever needs her, wherever they need to fill everything that they are. And she sits with her 2 feet, in a lotus position, whereas green Tara sits with one of her feet like this because she's ready to get up into action. So when all of you say, okay, what is all this deity practice? The deity practice is what we are doing in order to go beyond the ordinary body, speech, and mind, and use the qualities of the deity, which are internal qualities, to change everything in ourselves. And it's one of the ways of actually getting there. Okay, Tati. Anyone else want to ask anything? Because I think we must do, I'm not going to do that chart tonight, Fee, because I've got to put a lot more thing, the eyes, the confidences, all of that I've got to put in, which I'll do. But does anyone else want to ask anything?
Mel, I would like to.
Please, Kate.
It's on behalf of, well, it's because of experiences that I've had with certain clients. And I just wondered what your view might be in a case where somebody has disassociated, perhaps because of trauma or whatever the reason is, but they're so dissociated that they're unable to feel sensations, they're unable to feel emotion. And so introducing the idea of, embodying and allowing something to transform, completely, you know, can't go there. So I wondered, and also, of course, I mean, I'm not wanting to put Buddhism onto people, but to
Yeah.
try and use skills. And if there's anything you may suggest in those cases.
So,
Yeah.
you know, when you have a person that is so afraid of touching and really damaged, you know, really traumatized, for me, you know, first of all, I find that when I used to be in a school and I used to have children, even big children, I would often take a puppet. So even you know, even I mean, even for a bigger child, you could take like maybe not a doll, but maybe some representative of something, so that they have an opportunity not to be so afraid, but they can relate. You know, little children, when you give them a puppet, they really tell you everything about themselves because they're telling you about the puppet, but they're really telling you about themselves. So sometimes using that kind of thing. But for me, people who are really, really damaged, I just think with all the patience in the world, you've got to just move closer and closer without pushing, without anything, just being able to be there, just being able to talk a little bit about the weather today, a little bit about, and then slowly just bringing teeny things in, teeny things, even doing dialogue between the two puppets. I think puppets are really good because I think if you've got puppets and if you find grown-ups of puppets, in other words, people, I think you can really often do it with them if you're creative, them talking to each other and how the one helps the other. I just think to myself, what was so beautiful about the Buddha is that the Buddha used skillful means to get through to people. You know, when Kisagatami came with her child, her dead child, and said, please bring him to life, he didn't say, you know, my dear, you're going to really have to accept that your child is dead. For her, that was absolute death to the nth degree. Okay, he didn't. He just said, go and find me, put your child down and go and find me a mustard seed from a house that's never known sorrow. And so she went to look, have you known sorrow? And then the people took her in and they told her all their stories in the next house and the next house. And she went looking for this mustard seed, and eventually, through his skillful means, she got it. And she really began to come and say, I need you to bury my child and to teach me. And the other one was the other girl. What was her name? I can't remember. Kisagatami was the one, and there was the other girl who lost her whole family, her children, her parents, and everything. And she was absolutely deranged. And she came to the Buddha with no clothes on. She was absolutely deranged. And what he did was he took somebody's robe, okay, and very gently wrapped it around this poor woman. And then as he wrapped it around, he looked at her and he said, come to your senses. And she awoke from this terrible delirium and fear, and she felt his warm jacket, his warm clothes around her. And both of them became very enlightened beings in this life through his skillful means. So you have to find something soft, something gentle, something coaxing for people that are really afraid. You can't say to them, don't be afraid, it's impermanent, it's everything. But you can do that through your puppets. They can tell each other, and she will watch that. And you can really engage like that. But you find a creative way. Doesn't matter what you do. Whether you take a piece of velvet material and tell her to touch the velvet material. Say, you know, you're really soft like this material. You know, that kind of thing, which is so important. really important. And I think your question is important, because I think all of us have at least one child or one grandchild or one that's a bit peculiar, and that we're looking at a way. And like, when you have that, it's so important to see it. We're going to talk about the 3 types of eyes that Tenzin Wangyal talks about in the 3 kinds of bodies. And you see it not through your biased perception, but through that heart of compassion. And when you see it like that, the person's got to dissolve. They have to dissolve because they have a Buddha nature too. So Fee, put on Tenzin's 5-point posture for me, please.
Yeah, Mel, can you make me co-host again? Because I had dropped off because it froze for some reason. Thanks.
I just want you all to see how he sits, because I think that in this, it's really, really important to see how Tenzin Wangyal sits in his 5-point posture. And he says that this posture, there we go. He says, and that's him, hey? He says that this posture, I just want to get to that, not that. He says that that posture is really helpful for your pain body, pain speech, and pain mind. I'm just going to get to it. So everybody, I want you to go into that particular posture that he is, that 5-point meditation posture, and I'm going to go through each of the points. But sitting like this is really, really important for everybody if you want to change your pain body, pain speech, and pain mind. So when you sit cross-legged, not with your legs in a cross, but one in front of the other, or a half lotus or a lotus, this helps to prevent the pranic energy from being dispersed, and it generates an internal heat, supporting the deeper, subtler, more blissful experiences of meditation practice. And he says, fold your hands in the position of equipoise. Rest your hand, palm up, left hand on right, against the lower part of your belly, about 4 finger widths below the navel. And he says, clarity and emptiness come from your hands in this posture. It minimizes, that posture that he's got, minimizes the experience of duality. Okay, so when you're seeing the person and the anger out there, this minimizes that experience, the judgmental activity of the mind, and the sense of separation or disconnectedness is gone. He says, when you keep your spine straight like he is, holding it erect but relaxed, it keeps the primary channels straight and open to allow smooth and easy upward flow of the prana. Tuck your jaw slightly down and in. This lengthens the back of your neck and helps to quiet your thoughts. Keep your chest open. This is the 5th one. This aids free breathing and helps to open your heart chakra, a central energetic focal point of the body. So in this posture, where you are bringing all your energy into the central channel, and you are very mindful that the central channel is where the energy of non-duality flows. So when you're sitting in this perfect posture, the energy automatically comes into the central channel. And you're breathing in through the nostrils, out through the mouth, in and out, in and out. And you are absolutely relaxing. Your eyes should be at least partly open. And you are allowing everything to just express itself. You're not trying to be quiet and still. You are allowing everything in your out-breath to come out of you and just to let it be. And as you breathe in, You're breathing into the spaciousness of your mind, that pure, open spaciousness, remembering that it can accommodate absolutely everything. You don't have to think, where does this go? What should I do? How should I do this? What should I analyze? Just allow everything to come up effortlessly. And this very important posture helps you to get to effortlessness. So if you're going through a terrible problem now, or having a difficulty, or feeling a particular emotion, or feeling despondent, or having a lot of internal dialogue, and really feeling that pain, body, speech, and mind, I want you to just allow absolutely everything to open up. And I want you to just be free in the spaciousness of your mind. Think of all the pains that he gave us, of needing and desiring so many things. Just let them be. The pain or fear of losing what we have, just lose it right now. The pain of being separated from our loved ones, just let them grow into what they need to grow. No holding on, no attachment. Freedom, openness, spaciousness, luminousness, clarity. And the pain of encountering people we don't like, or people we are afraid of, or people we built up in our pain mind to be something we can't handle. Just let it come up in front of you and let it all dissolve to the pure blue spaciousness of the mind. You can almost, by looking at this picture, feel the freedom and the peace. And most of all, let the struggle go. It is only the conceptual mind that struggles. The pure, changeless mind can just abide without anything. But the conceptual mind is working it all out, struggling. So if you feel any struggle in your body, let it be. Let it go. Ease into it. Allow yourself the total freedom that you watch Tenzin Wangyal has got. Everything spontaneous, everything effortless. No more things to do, just to be. I remember Surya Das doing this beautiful meditation with the children. And he said, I'm going to give you the gong. And I want you to listen to the gong, the sound, the energy, right up until it dies. Don't move until it all dies. You let it dissolve. And that's what you do with your pain. You just follow it to the end. Allow it, give it space. And it will all dissolve. So let's dedicate, everybody, let's dedicate this to all sentient beings in tremendous pain. And let's just dedicate all our things. I'll answer any questions you've got after this. But let's really pray for all those in wars and all those scheming and all those conniving and all those doing everything. Let's pray that they all can benefit from the teaching, get some merit from doing this beautiful teaching and following it. So let's dedicate, everybody. Through this merit, may all beings attain omniscience. May all obscurations fall away from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may all beings be freed. Sonam diye tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jegana chi balak jopaye sipe sole doa do warsho.